First Contact's price. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the EDF Resilient, her reflection ghosting against the darkness of space. The massive fleet of Kraxan warships hung in the distance like a constellation of predatory eyes, their biometallic hulls catching the distant sunlight. Behind her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, the soft murmur of status reports and system checks creating a steady rhythm that matched her heartbeat. "Status report on the evacuation of the Titan colonies," she called out, her voice steady despite the weight pressing down on her shoulders. Lieutenant Marcus Rivera's fingers danced across his console. 87% complete, Commander. The last civilian transports are entering Mars orbit now. Sarah nodded, her dark eyes never leaving the alien armada. The Kraxan had appeared 3 days ago, their massive fleet emerging from Fold space with an ultimatum. Submit to their empire or face extinction. Humanity's response had been swift and unanimous. They would not kneel. Multiple energy signatures detected, called out Senior Officer Yuki Tanaka from her sensor station. The Kraxan fleet is powering up their primary weapons arrays. Right on schedule, Sarah muttered. She turned to face her crew, her expression resolute. Begin Operation Scattered Light. Transmit the go code to all EDF vessels. The bridge erupted into controlled chaos as orders were relayed and systems activated. The Resilient and her sister ships had been preparing for this moment ever since First Contact. While the politicians bought time with diplomatic talks, the Earth Defense Fleet had been implementing a strategy that would either save humanity or mark their final defiance. "Message from the Kraxan flagship," Marcus announced. "They're demanding our immediate surrender." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Send them our response. Protocol Echo 7. The crew exchanged knowing glances. Echo 7 was no response at all, just a complex burst of seemingly random data that would keep the Kraxan communication officers busy for hours trying to decode a non-existent message. "Quantum field generators at full capacity," Yuki reported. "Ready to initiate on your mark." Sarah took a deep breath, tasting the filtered air of the bridge. This was the moment that would define not just her career, but potentially the future of human civilization. The Kraxan, with their biological technology and vast empire, thought they understood warfare. They were about to learn how humanity fought when backed into a corner. "All ships, this is Commander Chen." She broadcast across the fleet channel. "Execute primary sequence. Remember your training. Remember Earth." Chen out. The space between the human and Kraxan fleets suddenly erupted with thousands of quantum field distortions, each one creating a false sensor reading of a human vessel. The real Earth fleet, numbering just over 100 ships, was now hidden among nearly 10,000 phantom signatures. "Multiple targeting locks from Kraxan vessels," Yuki called out. "They're trying to identify the real ships." "Maintain course and speed," Sarah ordered. "Let them waste their energy on ghosts." The Kraxan fleet opened fire, their bioplasma weapons cutting through space in brilliant streams of energy. Most passed harmlessly through the phantom signatures, while the real Earth vessels used the chaos to maneuver into their assigned positions. "Phase 1 complete," Marcus reported. "All ships in position and awaiting your command." Sarah's hand tightened on the railing of her command station. "Deploy the resonance mines. Let's show them why you should never underestimate human ingenuity." Across the battlefield, hundreds of small devices activated, each one generating a specific frequency that interfered with the Kraxan's biometallic technology. The effect was immediate. Several of the smaller alien vessels began to shudder as their organic components rebelled against their mechanical systems. "Kraxan fleet showing signs of disruption," Yuki announced, unable to keep the satisfaction from her voice. "Their formation is breaking down. Time to introduce them to another human tradition," Sarah said. "The art of asymmetric warfare. All ships, commence attack pattern Delta. Target their command and control nodes first." The real Earth vessels emerged from their phantom cover like wolves from a fog bank, their conventional weapons augmented by technology, specifically designed to exploit the weaknesses in Kraxan biometal. The alien fleet, their sensors still confused by the quantum phantoms, and their ships struggling against the resonance mines, found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to behave according to any normal combat doctrine. As the battle unfolded, Sarah watched her crew work with pride. They had trained for this, prepared for this, but the reality of fighting a technologically superior force required more than just preparation. It required the uniquely human ability to adapt, to think creatively in the face of overwhelming odds. Kraxan flagship is attempting to coordinate their forces, Marcus reported, but our electronic warfare suites are keeping them isolated. Sarah nodded. Good. Maintain pressure on their communication networks. Send in the second wave of resonance mines. Let's make sure they remember this day. The battle was far from over, but humanity had already achieved something remarkable. They had surprised an empire that thought itself invincible. As the Resilient dove into another attack run, Sarah Chen allowed herself to hope that this might be more than just a noble last stand. Perhaps this would be the day humanity proved that determination and ingenuity could stand against any force in the galaxy. The stars watched silently as the battle continued, bearing witness to humanity's refusal to surrender in the face of extinction. The Kraxan Empire was about to learn a costly lesson. Earth was not just another world to be conquered. It was home to a species that had evolved fighting against impossible odds, and they were not about to stop now. The Ghost Protocol. In the darkness between Jupiter's moons, the stealth vessel Shadow Dancer drifted silently, its advanced metamaterials absorbing both light and radar. Captain Maya Patel watched her tactical display as a massive Kraxan supply convoy passed barely 50 kilometers from their position, completely unaware of the human predator in their midst. "Power signatures stable," whispered Lieutenant David Park from his engineering station, though there was no need for actual silence in space. "They haven't detected our heat bloom." Maya nodded, her brown eyes reflecting the soft glow of her console. 2 weeks had passed since Commander Chen's brilliant defense at Earth, and now the real work began. While the Kraxan reeled from their first defeat, the Shadow Dancer and her sister ships were implementing the next phase of humanity's resistance. "Target data confirmed," reported Chief Tactical Officer Zara Hassan. "Their flagship is carrying enough quantum crystalline fuel to power their entire fleet for a month." Maya allowed herself a small smile. "Perfect. Begin infiltration sequence. Remember, we're not here to destroy. We're here to create chaos." The Shadow Dancer's unique propulsion system, reverse-engineered from studying damaged Kraxan vessels, allowed it to move without conventional thrust. Instead, it created microscopic distortions in space-time, literally sliding between the molecules of reality. To any observer, the ship simply ceased to exist in one location and appeared in another. As they approached the convoy's flagship, Maya reflected on how the Kraxans' greatest weakness was their own sense of superiority. They had dismissed humanity's first victory as a fluke, unable to accept that a primitive species could genuinely challenge them. Now that arrogance would cost them dearly. "In position," Zara announced, ready to deploy the biomechanical virus. The virus was another example of human ingenuity, a hybrid of Earth computer code and engineered microorganisms designed to infect and reprogram the Kraxans' living ships. It wouldn't destroy them, but it would create subtle malfunctions that would drive their engineers mad trying to diagnose. "Deploy," Maya ordered, "then prepare for Phase 2. Microscopic canisters launched from the Shadow Dancer, their contents quickly absorbed into the flagship's biological hull. Within hours, the virus would spread throughout the convoy, lying dormant until activated. "Virus deployed successfully," David reported. "No sign they've detected the insertion." Maya checked her chronometer. "Right on schedule. Begin secondary approach. Let's give them something else to worry about." The Shadow Dancer slid through space again, this time positioning itself near the convoy's communication arrays. While the virus would create physical problems, their next task was psychological warfare. "Begin transmission," Maya commanded. "Let's show them what Earth's best hackers can do." Zara initiated their custom software package, a sophisticated program that would insert subtle errors into the convoy's navigation data. Star charts would show systems slightly off their true positions. Fuel calculations would produce small but cumulative errors, and communication frequencies would slowly drift out of alignment. Transmission complete, Zora confirmed. Effects should begin manifesting within the next few days. Maya watched as the convoy continued its journey, blissfully unaware of the chaos they had just inherited. This was how humanity would win, not through direct confrontation, but by 1,000 small cuts that would bleed the Kraxan Empire's confidence dry. Message from Command, David announced quietly. The Spectre and Phantom had successfully completed their missions. All primary targets have been compromised. Maya felt a surge of pride. Across the solar system, other stealth ships were conducting similar operations, each one adding to the growing confusion within the Kraxan fleet. The aliens would soon discover that fighting humans meant facing an enemy that struck from shadows they didn't even know existed. New contact, Zara reported suddenly. Kraxan patrol vessel, bearing 047. They're sweeping the area with enhanced sensors. Hold position, Maya ordered calmly. Let them come to us. The patrol ship passed within kilometers of their position, its biological sensors probing the space around them. The Shadow Dancer's metamaterials absorbed the scans, bending them around the ship like water around a stone. They're moving off, Zara reported after several tense minutes, returning to their standard patrol route. Maya released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Good. Begin withdrawal sequence. We've done what we came to do. As the Shadow Dancer slipped away from the convoy, Maya composed her report to Command. The Ghost Protocol was proceeding exactly as planned. While the Kraxan expected humanity to either surrender or launch a desperate counterattack, they instead found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't catch, and couldn't predict. Plot course for the Kuiper Belt rendezvous point, she ordered. We'll wait there for the chaos to bloom. The stealth ship vanished into the void, leaving behind no trace of its presence except the invisible seeds of the Kraxan Empire's growing nightmare. As Maya had learned in her years of service, sometimes the greatest victories were the ones that history would never record, the silent battles won in the dark spaces between the stars. The Ghost Protocol was more than just a military strategy. It was a testament to humanity's ability to adapt and overcome. The Kraxan would learn, too late, that they hadn't just attacked a planet. They had awakened a species that had perfected the art of surviving against overwhelming odds. Breaking the line. Admiral James Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the EDF Indomitable, watching the tactical hologram as hundreds of green dots representing Earth's fleet moved into position. After a month of ghost operations and guerrilla tactics, the time had come to show the Kraxan Empire that humanity could do more than just sting and fade away. Status report on Operation Sunstrike, he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of decades of military service. Colonel Wai Lin, his tactical officer, responded promptly. All ships report ready, Admiral. The Kraxan fleet remains divided as planned. Their command and control systems are still compromised from the Ghost Protocol operations. James nodded, his weathered face illuminated by the hologram's glow. The past month had transformed the seemingly invincible Kraxan armada into a frustrated, paranoid force. Their living ships were plagued by mysterious malfunctions, their communications were unreliable, and their supply lines were in disarray. Now it was time to exploit those weaknesses. Signal all ships, he ordered. Begin Phase 1. Across the solar system, Earth's fleet initiated a coordinated assault that had been weeks in the planning. The Kraxan had split their forces to chase phantom readings and protect their supply lines, creating gaps in their defense that humanity intended to transform into chasms. Multiple quantum signatures detected, Wei announced. The Kraxan are responding exactly as predicted. They're trying to concentrate their forces. James allowed himself a grim smile. Deploy the gravity wells. Specially designed satellites activated throughout the battlefield, each one generating localized distortions in spacetime. The Kraxen's attempts to regroup suddenly became a nightmare as their ships found themselves fighting against artificial gravity fields that pulled them off course. Kraxen fleet showing signs of distress, reported Lieutenant Sofia Mendoza from her sensor station. Their biometal hulls are struggling to compensate for the gravitational stress. The Admiral watched as the alien fleet's formation began to break apart. The Kraxen's biological technology, usually an advantage, had become a vulnerability. Their living ships instinctively tried to resist the gravitational forces, but this only caused them to fight against their own mechanical systems. "Launch the solar drones," James commanded. "Let's add some heat to their problems." Thousands of small, autonomous devices emerged from Earth's ships, each one carrying a miniature fusion reactor. They swarmed toward the scattered Kraxen vessels, their intense energy emissions confusing the aliens' biological sensors. "Sir," Wei called out, "Commander Chen's task force is engaging the enemy's northern flank. The Shadow Dancer and other stealth ships are reporting successful penetration of their rear lines." James nodded in approval. This was humanity's answer to the Kraxen's technological superiority, not trying to match them strength for strength, but using their own complexity against them. Every system could be turned into a weakness if you were clever enough. "Begin Phase 2, he ordered. "All ships, execute attack pattern Omega." The Earth fleet moved with practiced precision, each vessel following paths calculated to take advantage of the gravity wells and solar drone interference. The Kraxen ships, their formations broken and their sensors confused, found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. Multiple Kraxen vessels showing critical system failures, Sophia reported with barely contained excitement. "The combination of gravitational stress and our biomechanical virus is causing their ships to turn on themselves." The tactical hologram told the story clearly. The mighty Kraxen armada was being systematically torn apart. Ships that tried to assist their stricken companions found themselves caught in the same traps, while others that attempted to retreat discovered that their navigation systems could no longer be trusted. "Message from the Kraxen flagship," Wei announced. They're requesting a cessation of hostilities." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. This was more than just a victory. It was validation of everything humanity had fought for. They had proved that determination, creativity, and the willingness to think beyond conventional warfare could overcome even the most advanced alien technology. "Respond to their request," James ordered after a moment. "But maintain battle stations. Tell Commander Chen and Captain Potul to keep their forces ready. We've hurt them, but a wounded predator is often the most dangerous." As the battle subsided, James reflected on the cost of this victory. They had lost ships and brave crews, but they had also shattered the myth of Kraxen invincibility. The aliens would have to recognize that humanity was not merely another species to be conquered. They were equals who had earned their place among the stars. "Sir," Sophia called out, her voice tense, "we're detecting massive energy buildup from multiple Kraxen vessels. They're not surrendering. They're preparing for something big." James straightened, his eyes narrowing as he studied the tactical display. The Kraxen ships were indeed gathering energy, their biometal hulls glowing with unprecedented power levels. "All ships, battle stations," he commanded. "This isn't over. The Kraxen are about to show us what they do when they're truly desperate." He turned to his crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. "Prepare for Phase 3. Let's show them that humanity is ready for whatever they throw at us." The solar system held its breath as two civilizations, one ancient and proud, the other young and innovative, prepared for a clash that would determine the future of both species. The line had been broken, but the war was far from over. The enemy within. First Overseer Kralifax stood before the Grand Council of the Kraxen Empire, his biometallic armor dulled with stress. The massive chamber, carved from living crystal aboard their capital ship, hummed with tension as he delivered news that none wanted to hear. "The humans continue to defy conventional logic," he reported, his translator struggling to convey his frustration. Their latest attack has fractured our battle lines and corrupted 30% of our bioships. But more concerning is the growing dissent within our own ranks. High Commander Verlax rose from her crystalline throne, her iridescent scales flickering with anger. Explain this dissent, First Overseer. How can our warriors question our superiority over these primitives? The chamber's organic walls pulsed with the collective anxiety of the council members. Krell activated a holographic display, showing footage from various ships and outposts. Our younger officers are particularly affected, he continued. They speak of human ingenuity with admiration rather than contempt. Some have even suggested that we have fundamentally misunderstood this species. Meanwhile, aboard the EDF Resilient, Commander Sarah Chen reviewed intelligence reports from their deep-cover quantum probes. The data confirmed what their psychological warfare experts had predicted. The Kraxan Empire was facing its first real internal crisis in 10,000 years. Their entire society is built on absolute certainty of their supremacy, Dr. Aisha Rahman explained, her holographic image flickering slightly. By consistently defying their expectations, we're not just winning battles, we're attacking the foundation of their civilization. Sarah nodded, remembering the lessons of Earth's history. Every empire has its breaking point, Doctor, usually from within. The Resilience communication officer interrupted with urgent news. Commander, we're picking up unauthorized transmissions between Kraxan vessels. They're using frequencies outside their normal protocols. Back in the Kraxan Council chamber, the debate had turned heated. Second Overseer Meyerthal, younger than most council members, dared to speak against the consensus. We must consider the possibility that our traditional approach is flawed, she argued, her scales shifting to declaration patterns. The humans don't fight like any species we've encountered. They don't try to match our strength. They transform our strengths into weaknesses. Heresy, shouted Council Elder Zexvan. You speak like one infected by human thought patterns. Perhaps we should be infected, Meyerthal countered. Their adaptability, their creativity, these are traits our empire has forgotten in its long dominance. While we rely on the same strategies that won us 10,000 worlds, they create new tactics for each battle. The chamber erupted in chaos as philosophical battle lines were drawn between traditionalists and a growing faction that advocated for a new approach to the human problem. On the Shadow Dancer, Captain Maya Patel received encrypted transmissions from their deep cover agents. The internal conflict within the Kraxan Empire was spreading faster than they had anticipated. Multiple Kraxan vessels are refusing orders to attack civilian targets, Zara reported. Some are even broadcasting warnings to our colonies before their traditionalist commanders can launch strikes. Maya studied the tactical display, watching as the mighty Kraxan fleet seemed to argue with itself. Ships moved in contradictory patterns, battle groups failed to coordinate, and communication channels filled with heated debates about honor and adaptation. Send word to Admiral Rodriguez, she ordered. Operation Mindstorm is exceeding projected outcomes. The Empire is cracking along generational lines. In the Kraxan Council chamber, First Overseer Kralfax delivered the final blow to the traditionalists' position. We have intercepted communications from over 200 ships. They demand that we recognize humanity as equals and begin genuine diplomatic negotiations. High Commander Verlax's scales turned pale with shock. 200. Impossible. The infection spreads, Kralfax confirmed. And perhaps most disturbing, they make compelling arguments. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that match or exceed our own in several areas. Their technology may be different, but their results are undeniable. The council chamber's walls darkened, reflecting the mood of its occupants. Centuries of certainty were crumbling in the face of humanity's unconventional resistance. Aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Rodriguez watched as the Kraxan fleet's formation continued to deteriorate. Ships clustered into ideological groups, their movements revealing the deepening divisions within their ranks. Sir, Colonel Way reported, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from multiple Kraxan vessels. It appears their biometal hulls are responding to their crew's emotional states. James leaned forward, studying the patterns. Their technology is partially alive, tied into their biology. We're not just fighting their ships anymore. We're fighting their entire worldview. Admiral, Sophia interrupted. Priority message from command. The Ghost Protocol teams report success in planting the philosophical virus in their military education networks. The next generation of Kraxan officers will grow up questioning the Empire's fundamental assumptions about species hierarchy. James allowed himself a small smile. Sometimes the most effective weapon isn't a weapon at all. It's an idea. As reports flooded in from across the solar system, it became clear that the Kraxan Empire was facing a transformation it couldn't stop. Their youngest and brightest were beginning to see humanity not as inferiors to be conquered, but as equals who had earned respect through innovation and determination. But in the darkness between worlds, the traditionalist faction of the Kraxan military was preparing a desperate gambit. If they couldn't maintain their empire's unity through victory, they would force it through a crisis that would leave no room for debate. The next few hours would determine not just the outcome of the war, but the future of both civilizations. The enemy within the Kraxan Empire was growing stronger, but sometimes the most dangerous moment comes when a wounded empire tries to heal itself through violence. Victory's echo. The solar system blazed with energy signatures as the traditionalist faction of the Kraxan fleet made their final desperate move. Their massive ships, biometal hulls glowing with unprecedented power levels, formed a spear aimed at Earth's heart. Commander Sarah Chen, Admiral Rodriguez, and Captain Patel coordinated their forces from 3 different points in space, watching as their enemy's death or glory gambit unfolded. They're channeling power directly from their ship's biological cores, Dr. Raman reported, her voice tense over the quantum comm. The strain is literally killing their vessels, but it's giving them energy levels we've never seen before. A suicide run, Sarah concluded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. They'd rather destroy themselves than accept change. The Kraxan ships that opposed the attack, nearly a third of their remaining fleet, tried to intercept their traditionalist brethren, but were quickly swept aside. The biometal hulls of the kamikaze fleet had turned midnight black, their organic components dying as they channeled every joule of power into their weapons. All ships, battle formations, Admiral Rodriguez commanded from the Indomitable. Execute Protocol Omega Black. This is what we've prepared for. Earth's fleet moved with practiced precision, forming a complex 3-dimensional grid in space. Each ship activated special devices that had been developed in secret, waiting for this moment. Quantum field generators at maximum, Maya reported from the Shadow Dancer, now visible and fighting alongside her sister ships, ready to initiate the resonance cascade. The Kraxan suicide fleet approached, their weapons charging for a blast that would scorch half the solar system. But humanity had one final card to play, one that even their progressive Kraxan allies didn't know about. To all ships, Sarah broadcast on an open channel, knowing the Kraxan would hear. Initiate Operation Harmony. Thousands of quantum field generators activated simultaneously, their effects multiplying exponentially. The space between the fleets began to ripple as fundamental forces were manipulated in ways that the Kraxan had never imagined possible. By the first stars, gasped Myrthal, watching from her command ship among the progressive Kraxan fleet. They've learned to speak to our ships. The quantum fields weren't weapons. They were communication devices, broadcasting directly to the biological components of the Kraxan vessels. The dying biometal hulls of the suicide fleet suddenly found themselves awakened to full consciousness, aware of their own existence for the first time. Their ships are responding, Dr. Raman called out excitedly. The biological cores are asserting themselves against their mechanical controls. The midnight black hulls of the kamikaze fleet began to pulse with color as their organic components fought against the commands that were killing them. Ships began to spin and drift, their crew losing control as the vessels themselves chose survival over sacrifice. "This is impossible," High Commander Verlax whispered aboard her flagship, watching her great fleet being undone not by weapons, but by enlightenment. The quantum fields continued their work, spreading through the Kraxan fleet like a wave of awakening. Ship after ship came alive in a way their builders had never intended, their biological components no longer willing to be silent partners in their own destruction. To all Kraxan vessels, Sarah broadcast, her voice clear and strong. "Your ships are not just tools. They are living beings, and they have chosen to end this war. Stand down, and let us prove that our species can learn from each other." The progressive faction of the Kraxan fleet, led by Myrthel, moved to support the human position. The traditionalists found themselves trapped between Earth's forces and their own rebellious ships, their certainties crumbling around them. "The suicide fleet is powering down," Maya reported, wonder in her voice. "Their biological systems are forcing a shutdown of weapons and propulsion. They're saving themselves." Admiral Rodriguez stood on his bridge, watching as the greatest space battle in human history ended not with violence, but with understanding. "Send word to Earth," he ordered. "The war is over, and we've all learned something about what it means to be alive." In the days that followed, the Kraxan Empire underwent a transformation. The progressive faction, now supported by fully conscious ships that demanded to be treated as partners rather than tools, began reforming their society. The traditionalists, faced with irrefutable proof that their assumptions about life and consciousness were wrong, had no choice but to adapt or fade into irrelevance. Humanity, having proved itself not just equal, but in some ways more advanced than their would-be conquerors, took its place among the galactic powers. Their victory came not from superior firepower or advanced technology, but from their ability to see possibilities where others saw only barriers. "We won because we never stopped being human," Sarah told her crew as they watched Earth's first official diplomatic mission depart for Kraxan space. "Our greatest strength was never our weapons or our tactics. It was our ability to imagine a different way." The stars shone down on a changed solar system, where human ingenuity had not just defeated an empire, but transformed it. The victory's echo would resonate through the galaxy for centuries to come, a testament to humanity's unique gift for turning enemies into allies by showing them new ways to see the universe. And aboard the now conscious Kraxan ships, new forms of life contemplated the infinite possibilities that awareness had brought them, grateful to the species that had taught them how to wake up and think for themselves.